Here comes some knowledge for your brain! Here are 50 amazing facts to blow your mind. Due to their long association with humans, dogs have evolved the ability to thrive on a starch-rich diet, which would be inadequate for any other canid species. The oral history of the Klamath indigenous people describes the eruption of a volcano and subsequent creation of Crater Lake in Oregon, events that geologists date to almost 8,000 years ago. More than 86% of psychologists have themselves sought therapy, average of 221 sessions, and 62% identify as depressed themselves. The Greek Minister of Finance from 2013 to 2015 previously worked at Valve as their game economy analyst. The laboratory sets for Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein were made up of pieces of the set of the original Frankenstein. Brooks was able to contact Ken Strickfaden, who built many of the original sets and still had parts of them in his possession, and agreed to lend them to the movie. Two main populations of dingoes, west and east, do not share close ancestry. They might actually represent waves of humans bringing domesticated dogs and wolves into Australia 8,000 to 3,000 years ago. Lawyer Andrew G. Halley was the world's first practitioner of space law. He was pivotal in founding the International Institute of Space Law, which provides guidelines on how the law should apply to space and extraterrestrial beings. He died in 1966, 3 years before the moon landing. There's a German dish called Mettbrötchen, served as raw minced pork served on a roll and sprinkled with raw onions. I like to experiment with food, but I don't know about that one. Would you try it? Leave a comment. In 1959, 30 TV westerns aired during prime time in the United States. None had been canceled that season, while 14 new ones had appeared. In 1 week in March of 1959, 8 of the top 10 shows were westerns. In addition, an estimated $125 million in toys based on TV westerns were sold that year. Ghost moons are swirling clouds of dust that share Earth's orbit, staying ahead or behind Earth as it goes around the sun. Officially called Kordylew's clouds, ghost moons were first reported in the 1960s and were only tentatively confirmed in 2018. The first known recipe for a PB&J sandwich dates all the way back to 1901. Protein folding is the process where newly formed protein in the cell changes from a long, unstable coil into a specific 3D shape. The final structure allows the protein to carry out its biological function. Many proteins fold spontaneously, some require enzymes or certain chemical conditions. There's a restaurant in California where you can eat free if you are taller than the chef. Called Lustig, the chef is Bernard Maringer and he's almost 7 feet tall. Kokomo in the Florida Keys from the Beach Boys song is not a real place. According to a 2016 study, having a first-class section on an airplane quadruples the chances of an air rage incident. Furthermore, loading economy passengers through first class doubles the chances again. NHL stadiums sound an air horn after a goal is scored because Bill Wirtz, owner of both Chicago Stadium and the Blackhawks, liked the sound of an air horn on his yacht, so he had one installed inside the stadium in 1973. His uncle's company made it, and most NHL horns come from them. Operation Denver was an active measure disinformation campaign run by the KGB in the 1980s to plant the idea that the United States had invented HIV/AIDS as part of a biological weapons research project at Fort Detrick, Maryland. The third season of Finding Your Roots was delayed after it was discovered that the show heavily edited an episode featuring Ben Affleck. Affleck pressured the show to do so after he was shown one of his ancestors was a slave owner. Samuel L. Jackson's famous line, "I have had it with these mother effing snakes on this mother effing plane," in the theatrical cut of Snakes on a Plane didn't come from the original screenplay. It was actually inspired by a fan-made trailer of the movie. The reason The Simpsons are so crudely drawn in the first appearances on the Tracy Ullman Show was because Matt Groening had sent in basic sketches assuming that they'd be cleaned up by the animators. But in fact, the animators just traced over his drawings. There were pilotless drones as early as the 1950s, and one inadvertently caused multiple incidents of civilian property damage, near civilian misses, and a 1,000-acre forest fire while the US Air Force struggled to shoot it out of the sky. When Texas entered the Union as a slave state in 1845, a legal technicality created an ungoverned, lawless strip of land which later became the Oklahoma Panhandle. People from Kansas moved in to evade strict alcohol laws, and the unofficial capital was called Beer City. Dominant female cotton-top tamarin monkeys used pheromones to stop subordinate females from breeding. The pheromones suppress sexual behavior and delay puberty. In the event that more than one female in a group becomes pregnant, only one of the pregnancies will survive. Director and writer of A Knight's Tale, Brian Helgeland, said that he intended to show what Geoffrey Chaucer, played by Paul Bettany, might have been doing that inspired him to write the Canterbury Tales during the 6 months in which he seems to have gone missing in 1372. Despite having herbivorous diets similar to cattle, which release large quantities of digestive methane through exhaling and burping, kangaroos release virtually none. The hydrogen byproduct is converted into acetate instead, then used to provide further energy. Silverchair's multi-million selling debut album Frog Stomp was written when all members of the band were only 15 years old. In Tiger Woods 99 for the PlayStation 1, the first 100,000 copies of the game had an Easter egg that a developer snuck in that, when put into a computer, contained a DAT file. That file would play the first ever South Park short ever made. These copies were later recalled by EA. The CEO of McLaren got his start by winning Wheel of Fortune. Zach Brown appeared on Wheel of Fortune and won $3,050. He spent all the money to buy a go-kart. The limousine was named after the Limousin horse from the Limousin region of France. It's a now extinct breed that was merged into the modern Selle Francais breed in 1958. The Limousin horse was bred as a luxury riding and carriage horse, being a favorite mount of French aristocrats and royalty. Matt Damon wanted the Bourne Conspiracy video game to be a puzzle game and refused to lend his voice talent to the game when it turned into a shooter. Lawrence of Arabia's death in a motorcycle accident made one of his doctors study what he saw as the unnecessary loss of life by motorcycle dispatch riders through head injuries, which led to an increased use of crash helmets by both military and civilian motorcyclists. Nancy Faust was the organist from the Chicago White Sox from 1970 to 2010 and was the first stadium organist to start playing tunes from advertising. This alongside TV shows and popular music tunes. She missed only 5 games in her 40 years due to the birth of her son. She's recognized at the Baseball Hall of Fame. Petra is a female black swan who made headlines between 2006 and 2008 for falling in love with a pedalo shaped like a swan on the Aasee, a lake in Munster, Germany. Reported missing in January of 2009, she was finally found on another lake, this time with a partner of her own species. After a boy in the 1930s found what looked like a great lump of coal, his family used it as a doorstop for a decade until his dad had a little look at it. This led to the realization that it was the world's largest black sapphire. After being faceted, the black star of Queenland is 733 carats. Following the Civil War, an estimated 1/3 to 1/2 of circulating currency was counterfeit. Luxury designer Jonathan Schwinge designed a tetrahedron super yacht, which puts the yacht above the water to avoid turbulence. However, no one has funded the project yet. In 1894, William Stewart Halstead, the first chief of surgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital, invented rubber gloves for his wife Carolyn Hampton as he noticed her hands were affected by the daily surgeries that she had performed. Medieval European cuisine used to be more complex and flavorful. However, once spice became cheap and readily available to the poor, the elites started taking spices out of European cooking as they didn't want to be associated with the poor. This trend had lasting effects on European cuisine. Mark Ruffalo woke from a dream that had told him that he had a brain tumor. He got a CT scan the following day confirming he had a benign tumor behind his left ear. The tumor was removed and he's now deaf in that ear as a result of the surgery. Squidward is canonically an octopus, not a squid. There are currently only about 24 blimps in existence, and half of them are used for advertising. Shoes discovered in the Titanic wreckage are typically found in pairs because they were worn by victims when they died. The bodies disintegrated, but the shoes remain due to tannic acid in leather. Bedbugs were first mentioned in ancient Greece as early as 400 BC and later by Aristotle. Bean leaves have been used historically to trap bedbugs in houses in Eastern Europe. The trichomes on bean leaves capture the insects by impaling their feet. The leaves are then destroyed. The axe used by Jack Nicholson to chop through the door in The Shining, was sold at auction in 2019 for $209,000. A crew member had purchased it originally from the production company at the conclusion of filming, with the intention of using it to chop wood. Babe Ruth became a shirt maker as a teenager while attending a reformatory/orphanage. Even during his baseball career, he adjusted his own shirt collars rather than have a tailor do it. In 1952, a doctor in France released a deadly virus to kill rabbits on his estate, which then killed 90% of France's rabbits within 2 years. Women are more than 3 times as likely as men to get migraines. This is the result of hormonal differences, which begin on the onset of puberty. Both girls and boys experience migraines at the same rate as children before these differences. For Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, $40 to $50 million was spent developing the game, while $150 million to $160 million was spent on marketing. A 5-year-old girl from Oklahoma named Edith Fuller defeated 52 other children to win a regional spelling bee and qualified for the 2017 national event. She's the youngest participant to ever secure a spot in the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Following Michael Jackson's death, his sister discovered 2 hard disks at his home that contained more than 100 unreleased songs. Many of those were unregistered. In 2010, Sony signed a deal with Jackson's estate to release 10 posthumous albums, but only 3 were ever released. Hey, thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please leave a like and a comment on it. Also, you can watch more by clicking either of the links on screen right now, and consider becoming a channel member. You get exclusive access to new videos 24 hours in advance, as well as exclusive content just for members. The link for that is in the description along with all of my socials. I'll see you guys next video.